Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we will take a look at some new revenge content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, What Happens When Engineering Students Are Asked to Truck-Proof a Mailbox? Yes, I know there are a lot of mailbox stories on here, but I just learned this story from my dad involving my Uncle Dale, family friend who passed away a few months ago, and figured you guys would get a kick out of it. Years ago, back when Uncle Dale and Dad were university students, their engineering professor came to their class with a problem that needed solving. His mailbox was getting broken by someone driving by every night. He and his wife had put up something like 4 or 5 mailboxes, and all 4 or 5 times, the mailbox had been knocked over by someone driving a red truck. This professor offered extra credit to any group of students who could come up with a truck-proof mailbox that not only fit with city regulations but within a budget of $20, which back then was a good-sized chunk of change. Well, if anyone here knows anything about engineers, as Dad puts it, they love solving problems. And if it's engineering students, they'll make it an experience to remember. Dad and Uncle Dale got together and got to work. They found a steel bar that fit within mailbox regulations. Posts have to be a specific height, width and depth, and filled the inside with a mixture of concrete and steel rebars. Once the concrete had cured, they welded 8 rebars to the sides of the bar, bent them in half and stuck it inside a bucket. To add extra weight, they filled the bucket with the heaviest rocks they could find. As a finishing touch, they painted it brown and black, to look like wood, and put the ugliest mailbox we could find on sale on top, welding it down for good measure. They brought this monstrosity into class, more dragged it because it was so heavy, and told the professor to bury the bucket where the mailbox stood. Since they were the first to turn in their project, the professor agreed to give it a try. That night the professor and his wife were awoken by a metallic bang, followed by a lot of cursing. They went outside and wouldn't you know it, there was that red truck speeding away, the mailbox still standing. At the base was a broken wooden baseball bat. 2 days later, the professor gets a bill in the mail for a hospital visit. Turns out when the passenger hit the mailbox, he did some serious damage to his arm and shoulder. They were planning on suing the professor, but the professor hired a lawyer who basically told the plaintiffs, "You're just going to admit that you were vandalizing the mailbox multiple times?" That shut them up. To the best of my dad's knowledge, the mailbox is still standing. The other students who still brought in mailboxes had theirs gifted to different professors throughout the town and are also still standing. Next one is titled, Party Every Night for a Year? Okay. I bought a house 4 years ago in a quiet neighborhood. I had wanted to get into that neighborhood for years. My best friend lives there. It was a couple blocks from my kids' school. It was a good neighborhood. Then COVID hit. My neighbors across the street were forced to move at the beginning of the pandemic before the eviction moratorium was in place. They were really good neighbors. We were friendly with each other and we were sad to see them go. So when the property owner rented to a new family, we were hoping we could cultivate a friendly relationship. Unfortunately, that was not the case. About a month after they moved in, the lockdown started. And that's when things went from 0 to 100 real quick. For the next year, every night there was a huge party. Cars down the street, music so loud you could hear it over regular house noise in every room in my house. My friend in the next cul-de-sac would text me regularly if the music he was hearing was my neighbor's. We tried to be civil. I asked politely. I brought them beer. I offered some killer 420. Eventually they threatened me and my wife, so we started calling the police. Almost every night for 4 months. We organized with the neighbors. And they started calling the police as well. Eventually the others gave up and started selling their houses because the renters were just that bad. We were still upside down on our place, so it wasn't an option for us. Eventually the police told me that I needed to stop calling and that it wasn't their issue to deal with. That I was a bigger nuisance than the renters' music. It was at that time the housing market was taking off. Houses were selling in my area for 40 to 50K over appraisal value. My wife and I looked at what we needed to make so we could move and listed our home for that. In 3 days we had a handful of obscene offers to choose one. But it was the lowest offer that stood out to us the most. Their offer was a good 20K under the next lowest, but they sent a letter. I'm a sucker for a letter, especially one with a picture of a young pregnant couple and a dog. And a patrol car? Turns out the young man is a police officer newly appointed at the local PD. And he takes his patrol car home. I knew at that point that this was the family to sell my house to, money be damned. I moved out as the neighbors were throwing a huge party. The next day the police moved in and they haven't had another since. I drive by regularly on my way to my buddy's place. They just sit quietly in their garage looking bored. I make sure I honk and wave every time. Next one is titled, Use My Name as an Insult? Enjoy being on the administration's blacklist. This happened back in 2011-12 when I was in high school and the person in question was a classmate in grade school, but we went to different high schools. The background. I switched to a new school and made the mistake of being friendly with the popular clique who pretended to be friends with me for a few months, make fun of me behind my back, etc., and I then became one of their targets until I went to high school. I also met a few stereotypes of a victim of bullying: not playing sports, wearing glasses, a little overweight, into nerdy stuff, etc., and just generally being kinda weird as a kid. I was an easy target to bully, and the amount of abuse, both before and after, really mentally affected me until my 3rd or 4th year of college, but the few years before high school are what matter here. What happened? Because I was easily picked on and kinda weird in grade school, the kids started saying stuff like, "Don't pull a insert name," or, "Are you going to insert name and mess this up?" And other variations. You get the idea. In 2011 or 2012 in high school, I was still friends on social media with a few people who had made my life hell in grade school, and I saw them saying stuff like that on a post. Now one of them was a complete idiot and hadn't amounted to much, but the other was class president in the final year of grade school, was in leadership positions at his high school, and was active in student government and actually running for high school class president. I knew this because I had a few friends at the other school that told me. Some of you can see where this is going. At this point in my life, the scales are tipping where I have been getting bullied less and standing up for myself more, and I decide to start my revenge. The revenge. The high school he went to was, and to my knowledge still is, quite strict regarding rules, and they had a rule about online bullying and whatnot. Because this guy is a model student and athlete, I take screenshots of his online comments, in addition to other questionable posts he made, along with a written explanation as to the background and why what he was saying was bullying and how he did the same in grade school, and sent it all to multiple people at that school's administration. I requested to be kept anonymous, because my name was used as the insult and couldn't really anonymously explain why it was so offensive and whatnot, and made sure all of the photos had no identifiers in them. About 1 week later, him, and others including the aforementioned complete idiot, make posts on social media apologizing for their behaviors and how their actions are not in line with the values of the school. From my friends at the school, I learned he had to take down all of his posters, withdraw from the school's student government and the current election, and make a speech in front of his classmates apologizing for his actions and saying he regrets them, in addition to athletic penalties and Saturday detentions. Next one is titled, Petty Revenge on My Jerk of a Sister. For some background, my sister is the most selfish person I have ever met. She will do whatever she wants or do whatever no matter the inconvenience it causes others. My sister acts like everything is hers and the world revolves around her and she only matters. She doesn't listen to my parents. She will take our parents' stuff for no reason. She once took my mom's car out without even asking her when she knew she had to go to work. She'll give so much sass when my parents ask so little and she doesn't care. She'll make a mountain of a molehill witch and moan when she does have to do something for anybody but for herself. My mom had borrowed an appliance from a close friend for my sister's party, and when asked her to return it, she was furious. When she did, she broke the lid and didn't even care. She brushed it off. When my mom argued at her, she acted like she was in the right, rolled her eyes and witched and moaned. She treats her own family like strangers. She doesn't say hello, doesn't even acknowledge us, but only when she needs us. When my mom confronted her on, she also tried to deflect it and brush it aside. She has no regard for anybody but herself. She acts like a snobby witch. My parents are planning a trip for my brother's birthday, and she demanded my mom switch the airlines because the one she picked wasn't up to her standards. My sister can only watch in the living room. She can't watch downstairs, not only upstairs. So I was playing video games and she stomps in demanding that I let her watch. When I refuse, she complains and rolls her eyes and cries like a baby. There was one night where she had lost her key and hadn't replaced it after my mom constantly telling her to get a new one, but her being a witch, she doesn't. Me and my uncle are close. We hang out every Saturday. On Saturday the house is empty until around 10, which is the time I get home. I leave my key in the same spot every time, and when I get home to my knowledge it's gone, so I have to have my uncle drive me around town to get a key from my mom and then drive back. The next day I confront her about she tries to act as the victim and tries to turn it on me. This was nail in the coffin for me. The story. My sister only watches in the living room and won't let anybody watch. I wake up early every day without choice. I went to go to the living room to watch, and 2 hours later my sister witches and complains, so to shut her up I let her watch. I go back to tomorrow and she slept on the couch with the remote in her pocket. Having had enough, I download the Fire TV app and use the virtual remote. I make it unwatchable for her. I will spam the home button anytime she starts watching anything. Sometimes I will rewind or fast forward to spoil the ending, or I will restart the TV. She still hasn't caught on, and I plan on doing this until she moves out. Next one is titled, Revenge on Crappy Colleague. Had this colleague that always sent files for my review. Completely out of order, almost always lacking all the required documents. Complete waste of time to review it, write up what's wrong, send back, then often repeating. Worse, she wouldn't realize when file was ready for review until the customer calls and complains. Then, she wants it reviewed immediately because should have been done last week. Here's where it gets good. Christmas Eve, company decided they'd close a few hours early. Everyone would still get paid, until their normal time. Could leave once their work was done. Long story short, customer is pissed it's been taking so long. Demanding answer today, usually has to wait few business days. That means I'll have to stay late. She makes big deal getting management involved to make me do it. This file is a nightmare beast. Who knows how long it'll take. But I put aside my other work and did it. Then I waited until time to leave. And then, called the customer, normally wouldn't have to, but knew she wouldn't. Ran over to her and her supervisor, who also made this trouble for me. Good news. I got that file done and Mr. Jones is on the phone, ready to discuss and move forward. A 15 to 20 minute call. Her and her sup were shutting down their computers, had to boot them back up and stay while everybody else left. I'm sure it took at least 45 minutes. Knew if I didn't get that customer on phone, she'd pretend she couldn't reach him and leave on time. I literally waited until 2 minutes before leaving time. Lol, good stuff. Last one is titled, Steal My Food, okay no problem. Whilst working on a construction site whilst waiting for enlistment date, someone kept eating my lunch from the fridge. Tried to catch them but to no avail. The following Monday I get out a tin of cat food, mayonnaise and sweet corn and mixed it all together for what looked like tuna mayo sandwich, placed that in the fridge and kept my lunch in an icebox in the van. Come lunchtime and I come in with my lunch, check the fridge, lo and behold the cat food lunch has disappeared. So I announced to everyone there that I didn't know who's been stealing my food, but I hope they enjoyed the cat food and mayo sandwich that they'd stolen. A fat old guy goes green and shoots to the toilet. Everyone else was laughing their butts off at him and saying it's been happening for months and nobody knew who it was. I sincerely hope he learned his lesson that there's always someone more devious than you. Thanks for listening.